Okay, welcome to Pesci's Recovery Corner. I'm here today with my friend Cassidy. First and foremost, welcome to the corner.
Thank you so much.
So Cassidy's a special individual. She's when she first got to my house today, I asked her, how do we even know each other? Like, how did we first meet? And I think that we ran in the same circles when it came in the recovery world. And so it's nice to have you on here. I've been watching you from a distance. I noticed that you are a deep spirit, a person that definitely seems to be in touch with your soul. I've seen some of your TikTok content, but I've also just seen you on Facebook, and you talk about the soul a lot. So I want to definitely delve into that. But first, I want to learn you. I want to learn about you. I want people to learn about you and see who you really are. So who is Cassidy? Where'd you grow up?
Okay. So I grew up in Snoqualmie. I'm like, where do I start? There's so much.
Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? What it was like?
So I grew up in a small town outside of Seattle, Snoqualmie, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
It was gorgeous, a lot of land, a lot of beauty, and also a lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs.
Okay.
And so I grew up in intensity, a lot of chaos immediately.
Like what kind of chaos?
Like family divorce, drug abuse in the family, alcoholism in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately remember being a child and feeling separate, different, and alone.
Uh-huh.
So isolated, depressed, and I didn't want to be here in this planet. And so
what depressed you? Did you have brothers and sisters that were better than you? Was there parents that were arguing? What was so depressing?
Oh, it was parents that are arguing, a lot of chaos in that thing, mom and dad fighting for custody, back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of crazy life events happened between 1 and 3, which is in subconscious. They say that's the most imprintal phase. So
right.
That's where a lot of trauma happened.
Right.
And so once I started actually coming into my identity in this world, I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And did not have a connection to myself. And so immediately...
You don't strike me as a person that's depressed. I mean, you've worked through it a lot.
I've worked through it.
Okay.
It's a trauma work.
Very good. Very good.
So immediately I spiraled into an eating disorder. I was a chubby kid, really bullied for that, made fun of a lot.
Bullied. People made fun of you for being chubby.
Yeah.
Okay,
chubby
so that can mess with you.
Oh yeah, totally.
That can depress you more.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. So I felt like I wasn't connected to my body, disassociated, I didn't really have any identity. And then I didn't have the attention that I needed as a child either. So I was just kind of floating off and doing my own thing. I always stayed at friends' houses and kind of put myself into their life. And I always wanted someone else's life. Mm-hmm. And so middle school eating disorder started.
Okay.
Anorexia, all the things. And I remember just always feeling...
Were you bulimic?
Bulimic.
You were purging?
Anorexic, not eating, hypervigilant in sports. So I'd just do all the different sports and I had my obsessions already.
Right.
And so I think it was 8th grade, I discovered marijuana and alcohol, both at the same time. And it's the duo for...
How old is 8th grade?
11, 12. No, maybe 12.
Oh, 12, yeah.
Going into 13,
right
maybe.
That time.
Yeah. And alcohol, and the two together was the dynamic duo for destruction. I also got put on Adderall shortly after that.
Right.
Because, I had all the labels too, the ADHD, the ADD.
Did they who put you on Adderall? Your parents took you to a doctor and the doctor thought it would be appropriate for you to be on Adderall?
Doctor thought it was appropriate.
Was that because you were a hyper kid? Because usually they give it to kids to kind of calm them down if they're hyper.
Hyper, not focused, very unattentive in class.
At 12, not focused, they were trying to give you this to be able to focus.
Able to focus.
Okay.
And it's there's all the labels, right? If someone's not performing at their peak, they don't think what's going on in their life outside of home, or what's going in their emotions. They just prescribe you something to be the ideal. Right. So it was marijuana, alcohol, Adderall, and then immediately, once I got into my freshman year of high school, it was like I was the life of the party, hanging out with all the older kids, like seniors and out of high school already. And it was just like selling my Adderall on campus, trading it for Xanax, trading it for ecstasy, and getting introduced into
So
cocaine.
you were selling your Adderall on campus and trading it for Xanax. How old were you at that time?
Freshman, so 14, 15.
And what made you even decide that you wanted to do Xanax? Like, what did you know about Xanax?
I just wanted to get out of myself. That's what it was. I was just this like awkward. I had so much unprocessed trauma from my earlier days. And then the eating disorder too, like all the thoughts that it's like the self-obsession, right? So it's like, I'm like chronically obsessed with myself, and I just like, and it was like no focus, and I just wanted to feel better. And so at this point, my whole thing, it was funny because I was a good student in high school until I left high school, but I was a good student. So I had all these different, I don't know, maybe you could call it the Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I had all these different traits to me and connected to all these different crowds. And then I had this whole other double life where it was like, I always needed to be on some type of substance.
Right.
And I just wanted to escape. And it didn't matter in my freshman years where I really went, because I had potential, I think. I did really good in school, and I was good in sports in 8th grade. So I had potential to really go two ways in high school. It was either like get my stuff together, do sports, like be this really good academic, or go into drugs and partying. And slowly it went like this. And it was just like, it was out of my control. It was got to the point where it's like, I didn't care. I was just trying and doing everything and chasing the excitement.
And your parents were split up at this time?
Parents were split up.
Who were you living with?
My mother.
And was there any other siblings around?
Yeah, I have a stepbrother who was my stepdad's son. So he came on the weekends, and then a half brother who is 9 years younger than me.
Okay, so you were kind of in your own little...
I was 100% in my own
Alone.
bubble, alone, in my own, like, in my own thing. I didn't really feel that connected to my family. And it's not their fault or anything, but I think I needed some special attention, you know? And so I just was off in my own little bubble doing my own little thing. And I often would like have friends adopt me, you know, like I would find my family at the time, like my best friend, and I just became a part of their family.
And music, you're a musician. When did you first start playing music?
Okay, so music has been in the heart space since I can remember. I think since I was like a little child. I do remember my mom having this big video camera, you know, the older ones. And I put on this blue wig and I would sing in front of it. I was just like this performer, and I got my
lively child.
A lively child.
Lively kid.
Yeah, there's creativity bursting out the seams.
Yeah.
And I always had this idea that I wanted to be an actress and a performer and all of that. I did a lot of plays. And I got my first guitar in the 5th grade band. So there was that. And I also didn't have the really push or support to go deeper into studying that. And I remember when it happened, me and my friends were singing in a circle. I think we were in like 4th grade or something. And I was belting out, and there was our older neighbor friend there, and she said, "You're almost good at singing." And that went into my...
That just ruined you.
It ruined me. I was 4 years old. Or not 4 years old, 4th grade. And it ruined me. And so it went into my subconscious forever. And then I became very private about singing, except when I would drink or something in high school.
And then you were just singing freely.
Rapping, all of the things.
You were rapping too?
Yeah. I have some tricks up my sleeve.
I actually used to be a rapper myself. I was in a rap group.
No way. Yeah. Maybe we should have a freestyle.
Who knows? You never know. Okay, so then what happened? As you were staying at mom's house, and doing all this stuff in your adolescence, when did it become a problem?
I think it became a problem right when it started.
Really?
I was fat right when I drank alcohol, actually. Like, alcohol was like, it released all my inhibition. Like, I just was like life of the party, always needed, and it just kind of fueled me to always need to be on a substance. And then the dark ages, though, came after freshman year into sophomore year.
Describe the dark ages.
The dark
why
ages.
were they the dark ages?
The dark ages.
The dark ages.
That is when Oxycontin was a really big thing. I know it was a really big thing in Washington in high schools, and I think it was a big thing everywhere. And so
around what year was this?
I want to say 2007, 2006.
Yeah. That's when the 80s were out.
Yeah.
The Oxy 80s.
So that is what got me into everything. It was just like I was doing.
Wait, before you say into everything, so how the hell were you as a teenager getting your hands on Oxys if they were supposed to be prescribed?
Oh, it was going around our school. It was going around our school, our towns. It was like hot on the black market. So
interestingly enough, like being from Washington, you're from Washington State. Washington's always been known to be a wet, dreary area where it's always raining and depressing. And I mean, it's beautiful. It's the nature's out of this world up there, especially. Plus, you can, there's a lot of agriculture and things like that. So, but it's been on the map for years as a place where there's a lot of heroin use.
There's a lot of heroin. There's a lot of suicide. There's a lot of mental health. There's a lot of homelessness, actually.
Lots of homelessness.
Yeah.
I've been up there. I've seen it firsthand. Yeah. It's bad. I did when another Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, when I did do a semester of college, we studied the homelessness rates up there, and it's almost as bad as LA, which LA is way bigger. So it's really bad.
It's bad.
It's really
bad.
I
think it has to do with the drugs up there, which it still baffles me how it's Oregon and Washington, the drug, the heroin problem and the meth and the fentanyl is like really, really bad up in that area. And it must have to do with the weather and the mental health rates and all of that.
Sure. So during that time that you're describing, you started getting your hands on Oxies.
Yeah.
And you were just taking it in pill form?
It was a thing. I don't even really know how it started, but it was like a hype to smoke it.
Okay,
smoking it
During
off
that
the
time,
tinfoil.
people would smoke Oxys.
Yeah, they called them beans back then.
Okay, and because kids could smoke those pills. I know that they changed the pill over a period of time.
They changed it. They changed it probably. So right when I started was right when it was starting to get changed. Because I remember you could do things to get it smokable, and that's right when I was starting to do it. Like you can do weird things like microwave it and all of this stuff. Anyways. So it started off as that, but because what was happening is they were getting so expensive because they were changing them now. So it was hard to get your hands on the good ones.
Yeah.
So right at that time, people started using heroin. And before I think it was like people would use heroin like way beyond, like do Oxys for years and years and years. Well, I got introduced to Oxys and then got introduced to heroin right after that. And so once I even remember doing heroin for the first time, because it was like Oxys had a different type. Like it was still gross and everything, but heroin was even more disgusting. Like, have you ever done it? Were you ever addicted to it? Okay, so you were addicted to it. So,
but I want to ask you this. Okay,
yeah.
Can I? This is something that always goes through my mind. Because as you're telling the story, I'm seeing your, like, it's like a painting. It's like a film, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm seeing you in that mode, and I think to myself, this is what happened for me. Like, I knew when I was first ever going to try heroin, or when I was getting into like heavier drugs like coke or crack.
Yeah.
The thought went through my mind like, this is all kinds of wrong.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that?
Absolutely. It was. I was already too far down the line at that point, because I remember after getting introduced to OxyContin, I actually felt guilty immediately. And I knew where it would lead. I like saw all my friends getting strung out on heroin, and I was like, and I still went to the edge.
Okay. So you started experimenting with heroin, and at what age?
I think it was 15 I was 16 when I did it for the first time.
And that means because they were changing the Oxys and you couldn't really get the good ones anymore?
Couldn't get the good ones, couldn't find it. And all of my friends around me were
resorting to
heroin. And so I remember
it was black tar heroin.
It was black tar heroin. I remember too, the night that we got it for the first time, it was like, we're only doing this once.
Yeah.
Because
That's what we all say.
we can't find the Oxies. So we're only doing this once. And then I remember doing it, feeling terrible the next day, feeling so guilty. And I was like, I don't even like that. Like, I don't even like it at all. I'm never doing it again. And a week later,
You were doing it again.
I was doing it again.
When you first got it, was it obviously when it's black tar heroin, which some people that don't know it looks like tar.
Yeah.
It's like looks like black tar.
Yeah.
So when you got it, did you smoke it?
Yep.
That's what the kids were doing.
That's what the kids were doing. And then I also had my Adderall addiction had spiraled into an ecstasy addiction, had spiraled into loving meth, amphetamine. So it was like heroin and meth, both at the same time.
Goofballs, they call them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the goofballs, not the traditional goofballs that Bill W. used to do.
Yeah.
But this was like modern day goofballs.
Modern day goofballs. And so that combo, it was weird because it kept me in this facade of like, okay, I have everything figured out. I was still showing up in weird ways to certain things. Like no one really, besides I had my junkie friends that I would go and use and then I would go to school, and then I had my partying friends, and alcohol was always very loud in all of it too. Like it was like I was keeping up.
It was essential. It was always there.
It was essential. It was always there. So I was keeping up with all these different, it wasn't even just one category. It was like all these different things, you know, it was still like snowboarding and like doing all the crazy things while also being addicted. And I was able to manage that.
So you were actively up, like recreationally snowboarding, like up on the mountain and on heroin?
Oh my God. It was crazy. Well, that's when the meth would work.
The meth would work. Okay. The meth would kick in and you were able to be active.
Yeah. So for a while, I was able to maintain this facade. Like everything was okay. I wasn't addicted to drugs. I was fine. And then that lasted I think that lasted like a year. And then by the time I was 17, everything went downhill. Left school. And then I really started experiencing the like physical and chemical addiction. And like I couldn't go without it for very long. And I was having extreme mental like issues. And
were you dope sick? Were you going through withdrawals?
Dope sick, withdrawals, staying up for 2 weeks at a time on meth. Like, so that's when everything started crashing.
And this is like right when you're about to turn 18?
Right when I'm about to turn 18.
And then what happened?
Then I turn 18 and things go far down the rabbit hole. Those were like the dark ages. I was fully addicted by that point. So it was like I was fully out of my parents' house, doing whatever I could do to get high, living on the streets, living in my friends' houses. At that time, I was getting involved with like people who I shouldn't be involved with, had guns pointed at me, had very toxic relationships, and I'm like a child essentially. Yeah. So, and then there was also this though. There was also this like beautiful soul that I still would feel underneath it all. That was like also begging, like crying for help, because it's like there was a point where I realized how there was one point, crazy story, and this is kind of when things started to shift for me, and I knew I was getting myself into more than I could handle. This dope dealer that I was staying with was now getting involved with the cartel, and at that point, like we had like our, you know, like drug money little bougie pad, and he got set up. And he got robbed at gunpoint. And then I got blamed for the setup because it was from someone I knew, which I didn't set it up. And then everyone was after me at that point. And that was when I knew, like, I didn't know what they were going to do, but I was getting a lot of threats. I knew I was in trouble. And so that is when I was like, randomly, God, like, put so many weird coincidences, because I had a friend who went to a sober living and got sober probably 9 months before this incident. Right. And I was high, and I went and visited him, and I met someone there who I had a crush on, and he was sober. So God sprinkled that in. And then 9 months later, I'm at my, like, I got kicked out of the place that I was staying in. People are now after me, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. I can't tell my parents. My parents don't really know. I'm like holding this facade. I'm like, okay, I'm in trouble. What do I do? And I remember this guy, and I like am like, hey, are you still in this sober living? Like, what? I'm like really struggling. He gets on the phone with me immediately and tells me to go to his house in Seattle, his sober living house.
Mhm.
I'm strung out. I go to this house. They take me to a meeting and I quote unquote fall in love with this guy. And they up there, the sober livings are very different than California.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know them.
So they let me move in and
Yeah.
I detoxed myself in that sober living
Actually,
house.
there's sober livings in California where they'll let you do that.
Yeah. So it was an all guys house.
Yeah.
And they put me up on my boyfriend at the time's like bed. It was just a random circumstances. And I like committed to detoxing myself, which was like.
So you detoxed off of the opiates and all that?
Yeah, it
With
was
no
comfort
meds?
No comfort meds. So it was almost like a month. It was like 3 weeks of hell. And
No
then,
Suboxone?
No Suboxone.
No methadone? None of that?
None of it.
So that was pure hell.
Oh my God. That was the only time that I did detox like that. And it was like, it's like everything's ripping through your whole soul and skin and everything.
So did you stop then?
I stopped for 6 months. And that was my spurt of going to college.
And you decided, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then you went to college right then?
Yeah.
And then you started using drugs again?
So I went to college. I started a program and I was living in that sober living with that guy. And he didn't tell me that he was like bipolar, but kind of more of the intense one with psychotic breaks. And so I didn't have any knowledge of that. And he stopped taking his meds when we were dating. And he was on this like very big euphoric thing. And I was going to college and I was kind of going to meetings. And I hadn't done any trauma work or anything. So that's kind of where codependency, I was like very just like school and then take care of this guy. And he got really, really, really depressed and I sank into it with him. And then he got kicked out of his house because he was like depressed and not unwilling to take meds or unwilling to do something different and causing a lot of issues. Right. So then we both get kicked out and then we both use and then go on.
What'd you use?
Heroin.
Back to heroin.
Then meth. Yeah.
And then meth. Okay. Earlier when we were talking before we even started this whole thing, I asked you what places have you worked, and you mentioned a place called Brass Tacks, which is out of LA, and then I asked you if you knew Aaron Apostle, right? You said yes. Is this when he came up there?
Yes. So Aaron Apostle. Well, actually, no. I went to my first because I did that one round with no treatment.
Right.
So then
you went to treatment?
Yeah, I went to treatment. Well, because also like me and the guy relapsed, and but he was like the meth was not good in his neurochemistry, and it was scary. Like it was getting really scary. Like I thought I was gonna, like a lot was happening in this time. So then I have my first coming to Jesus moment, and it was I was probably up for like a week, and I burnt my finger with the lighter and I saw God, or what I assume would be God. And it was like, okay, it's time for you to get sober. Go to treatment tomorrow. So I called my mom. They already had it all planned out. And
you went to treatment?
I went to treatment.
Up in Washington? Up in Washington.
That borders Astoria, Oregon.
I think I know where.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
I was there. I left once to go back to the guy.
You AMA to go to your codependent
relationship. To my codependent relationship. And oh my God. And then we ended up in the middle of the ghetto in Tacoma, Washington. So that's kind of like more of like the ghetto in Washington. In the middle of the ghetto in this little trailer. And I'm like, I have no idea what is going on by this point. So then I'm like, okay, do a little prayer again. I'm like, okay, I'm willing. Like, let's do this. So then I go back and then I'm in lockdown treatment for 3 months.
Up there?
Yeah, up there. Not like lockdown, but it definitely isn't
secluded away from everything else.
Secluded away from everything else. And it wasn't like rehabs how you see them in California, like where it's like you get your steps. No, you just you get your phone taken away, you get taken to meetings, that's it. There is where I found because I always I had a lot of energy running through me. I had a lot of like stuff happening, the ADHD, whatever you would want to call it. I just think it's creative life force moving through you and then there's like trauma too. So it doesn't have a funnel to like operate through. So I had so much energy, so much going through me. And I met my first counselor. There was Erin. And then there was another woman who introduced me to meditation for the first time.
So Erin was your counselor?
Yeah, one of them.
At that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And we became good friends. He was friends with I found a rehab boyfriend.
This was it like a common thread?
This is where the codependency.
Definitely a pattern I see here.
There's definitely a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get introduced to meditation for the first time and the steps. And it was those old school like morning meetings with like 5 people around drinking their coffee and smoking their cigarettes. And I loved it. I was like, this
of course
is
you loved
great.
it. You know why you loved it? Because you're an old soul.
Yeah.
I can tell.
I was like, it was in the middle of nowhere. There was no big meetings, no fanciness. Like it was just like, yep, I used to drink every day.
A few good old times.
Yeah, it was really good. So I loved it. And I just got really into yoga and meditation. And I became a fiend. I would carve out an hour and a half every day to go into these meditative states. And it felt like it was everything I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So then I got the rehab boyfriend and then moved into the sober living there in Astoria, Oregon, actually. And then thought it would be good and more efficient if I just moved in with him. And then boom, the codependency cycle starts again. And I completely disconnect from my true sovereign self and everything that I want to do and start shaping my life to fit into the life of someone else's. And then I got really miserable.
Shocking.
But that is also when I lived in my first mold infested place too. So also my health started going out of balance around that time.
Could you shut that door, please? Please. Thank you. So this is what I wanted to ask you. So after all of that happened, that you said mold infested. So you were affected by the mold.
I mean, so as we get into like what happened in the future, it's really crazy. But yes, at that time, I moved into this old, and there's a lot of mold, definitely in ocean towns too. And I had no awareness of this, but I moved into this place and my health started to get imbalanced. Like I started struggling with more anxiety, racing thoughts, more so than normal. And I remember there was this smell to that place. And that's kind of when things really started taking a dive, like mental health wise and health wise. And then my gut got really impacted. So I couldn't eat. I would eat certain things and it would trigger like inflammation or something like that. But I didn't know this at the time. But that is when my health definitely made a dramatic switch. And that was like the noticeable marker.
Interesting. So then what?
So then I go out.
Go out and what?
Well, first I drank some Four Locos.
And then?
And then I went straight to, I had this whole covert plan. It's funny that I remember this so clearly. I had this whole covert plan. My parents were actually up where I was fishing. They like are big fisher people. And I told my partner at the time that I was going to go see my parents in Washington. So I did this whole covert thing. They think I'm up there doing something else, my parents, and he thinks I'm down at my parents'. So I go down and I literally, this had been after a year of like being away. And I was like, I wonder if my dope dealer has the same number. And I just was like, I'm just going to test it. And like texted them and they texted me back immediately. And then I went on this run. I was actually working in treatment at that time and went on this run. And then in my whole stupor, broke up with the person and blah, blah, blah. And then I came to like after 2 weeks of that, this like coming to God moment where I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, I need to go back and get help. And then I went back and he had relapsed too. So then we had relapsed together and that turned into a whole thing. And then we went together to go off to California to get sober.
Okay. was it a treatment center?
We both went to separate sober living. So
sober living.
Yeah, so he went to one, and then I went to one. That was like kind of where like people coming off Skid Row go to. I just was like looking for the cheapest one.
Was it
like,
in LA?
It was in downtown Reseda.
Okay.
And so it was it's something that I was definitely not used to. And I went out there, and then I was hopeless. And I crashed my car on the way there.
Mm-hmm.
Flipped it 3 times in the middle of the freeway. So I then did my whole thing of like, okay, I want to go back home. And the partner that I'm seeing at the time too, I'm like, I'm going back up to Washington. He's like, I'm going to come too. He goes into a sober living up there. I don't. And he actually stays sober, and then I don't. So then I'm like, again, using on the streets in Seattle. This time I've burned so many bridges that I don't really have anyone. I don't even have my using friends at this time, because they're like, I'm so done with you, like
They were tired of you.
they were tired of me. Everyone is tired of me. So then that's where Aaron Postel comes in and kind of rescues me in Seattle.
He did an intervention on you.
It was like a soft intervention.
He intervened on your life.
Yeah. I reached out for help in like a hopeless state weeks before, and then just wouldn't talk to him after that, because then I was like, oh, just kidding, I don't want the help. And he was like, oh, I'm in Seattle at a baseball game. And little did I know he already had this plan for where I was going to go. And I met him at Starbucks, and he was like, you look like shit. And he was like, so he like is on his laptop, and he flips around and shows me this treatment center. It's northbound. And he's like, so this is where you're going to go for the next
Costa Mesa.
Yeah. He's like, you're going there for the next 6 months. And so
6 fucking months. He had that all set up for you.
Yeah.
Wow. Good.
Yep. So that was when everything changed in my life, because I got in my car and he grabbed my dope from me. And normally I'd go straight to the dealer and have to get one last fix.
Yes.
I just got in my car, went straight home, and I laid next to my mom on the couch. It was the first time like we really spent time together in a long time. And I was like, just take me to the airport in the morning. And so that was like my surrendering moment. And
awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So did you go to treatment for 6 months?
6 months.
Did you ever do heroin again?
Nope.
All right. Good. And music was always part of your life. You were still playing a lot?
Yeah. So when I got here and I was in Northbound, I was getting reconnected to music again. There's a lot of musicians there. It's California. And so I was opening, and I had my guitar, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I will do this. And, but once it was time for me to leave treatment, I had to kind of figure everything out really quickly. And so, and like be able to support myself. So I got a job at a mortgage company actually. And, just went, like music was there, but the second I got out of treatment, I didn't really have space for it, because it was like sales and full-time program. And then as I'm going through my steps, my awakening starts to happen. And then one day I'm like, I am like opening, and I'm like looking around and working at a mortgage company, working like long hours.
Right.
And I'm like, what am I? And I was doing good at it too. Like I was like on the phones, like, yes. Like,
right.
But, and I remember my manager at that time was like, because one day I just walked in and I was like, I gotta quit. And it was after listening to like some type of speaker tapes. It was like the holidays or something. And the whole week I just listened to these speaker tapes, and was talking about like the hopeless state of mind and body and all of this stuff. And I like go in there, and I'm like, I'm hopeless in this place. So I'm like, just going to quit. And I quit. I like went up to my manager, and I was like, I can't do this. He was in the program too. And he's like, you are set up to make like $500,000 a year if you want in a couple of years. And I was like, I don't care. Like, it's not following my soul. So I can't do it.
Interesting.
So then I quit without a plan, and was just kind of like, what do I do? What do we do? And then that's when I got into the treatment industry. And I started working at Casa Capri and doing admissions and learning admissions and business development from a really amazing person.
Nice. And then you went over into, what do you do now for work?
So now I do trauma integration coaching and sound healing and mindset. So it's NLP, it's neuro-linguistic mind stuff. So it's using hypnotic language to get past, because we have our conscious mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm like, okay, if I have a client, I'm telling you do A, B, and C. Well, if there's blocks and there's limitations that are in the subconscious mind, you're not going to be able to make change by will. So the subconscious, you use language to get past the blocks and barriers to shift your mindset. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever like done any hypnosis or like.
I've done psychodrama.
Yeah. And
psychodrama is what actually changed my life.
Yeah. And that's very similar.
I'm sure it is. I mean, it sounds like it is. It's basically changing a pattern and going through, delving deep into your past, but actually like getting out of that thing that we have conditioned our mind to think is what is, when it really actually isn't.
Absolutely.
And then letting go of it.
So that, and like psychodrama and Gestalt. So that's where the guy who created NLP actually took it from that.
Nice.
And so it was, it's a coaching method to get you out of the problem and to stop recreating it. And so, but then with my huge thing that we'll probably dive into that happened and going really deep into trauma work and codependency, through being.
Talk about it. What's the huge thing?
So when I was about 4 years sober, I actually had like I was in the treatment industry at this time for a lot of years, I think like 3 years. And I was also starting my coaching practice on the side, NLP, and diving back into music. So I had a friend who moved in with me, who's a musician, and there was this opening that was starting there. And I was like, oh my God, I remember my dream of like doing music.
Right.
Beautiful thing. And this going through this major awakening, and then I have this complete mental breakdown. And so I went from being like very positive, happy, elevated state to like not being able to get out of bed, suicidal thoughts, like kind of, it was major depression, with like on the edge of like what they would categorize as like maybe a psychotic break. And then severe anxiety attacks, like so much was going on. And that was after being full functioning, like on top of everything. This happened, and it kind of knocked me off my socks, and no one knew what was going on. No one knew how to help. And that's when I went on this quest of like, okay, I need to get better. I need to do whatever I can do to get better. And I went through mental health system. I went to a bougie mental health center, which was really beautiful, but I got put on antidepressants and it made everything worse. Like everything was getting worse. Yeah. I started losing like a little bit of eyesight in this eye, and like it felt like a lens like went over my vision, and I was having severe panic attacks, couldn't sleep, or I'd sleep for days at a time. And so then I get sent back up to Washington, because at this point I can't do anything. And so I get sent back up to my parents in Washington and get sent through the public mental health system up there. And I'm seeing this psychiatrist, and he's like, it could be bipolar. It could be this, it could be that. I would say like most likely with your track record, like you have traces of bipolar, and puts me on an antipsychotic, antidepressant, Seroquel, and anti-anxiety. So that's like 4 heavy duty meds just to get me to calm down. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, but wait, there's like my hair is falling out. Like I'm having issues, like something is happening.
Right.
And I was like, I think it's health. And then they go and take blood tests and stuff, and nothing is showing up. And so at this time, I think I'm going completely crazy, but I know something is up. So I'm staying at my mom's friend's house, and I'm like completely alone. Like everyone doesn't know what is going on with me in the program. and no one knows how to help. And so it was just me and like depending on something greater than myself. And so this was like the deepest, like third step, like the deepest trust of like, there is something greater than me. And so I remember after all of this, I couldn't really explain it to people, but my body felt like it was like stiff like a board. I was having severe anger outbursts, severe panic attacks. My vision was really blurry. I was getting a lot of brain fog. I couldn't think. I was like, I'd be on a thought and I would just immediately lose it. And so I got on my knees and prayed. I was like, whoever is out there, like, I need help. And immediately the next morning I was like, stop taking all your meds. So like cold turkey. I don't advise this to anyone, by the way. None of this is advice, but this is what I did. I cold turkeyed all these meds and was like, no, because I was just listening to this guidance and cold turkey the meds. And then I heard, get on the computer and look up centers. And so I like filled out applications because at this time, I think I'm just struggling with mental health. So I'm like, mental health centers. I applied to all these different ones all over the nation. And the only one that very next day, the only one that called me back is this place in Sedona, Arizona, Alternative to Meds. And this place, it's the only place in the world that does this right now. And they take high-risk mental health cases. And I got on the phone and I told them everything that was happening. I told them my childhood history. I told them my drug history. I told them my trauma. I told them my traumatic relationship history. And then I also told them like what had happened and what I'm experiencing in my body. And they asked a bunch of questions and they're like, I think something is going on with your health. We have like, they're talking about it. They said that they do a method where they help people actually get off their medications and they figure out the deeper underlying root cause of what's going on. So I have spent all my savings that I ever had on this whole gamut already. So I take out a loan and go to this place for 30 days just with the hope that something's going to get figured out. I have at this time, like.
You paid your own way into there?
I mean, my mom helped me get a loan.
Right.
And so it was my only option.
Right.
And so it was just like, I know I have to get there. So I get there and at this time, my family's done with me.
Right.
Everyone is done with me. And so I get there like very like, I remember they immediately put me in to go get like a massage and my body is like so stressed. It was shaking after they massaged me because I just was in fight or flight for over a year. And that is when immediately we did naturopathy and functional medicine. They have specific tests and unfortunately Western medicine isn't caught up with this yet, but they have specific tests to test your gut, to test your inflammation, but to test if fungus is in your blood, to test if certain bacteria are in you. So I came back. I mean, so first it was like a month of like figuring things out. And I started at that point getting chronic pain going through my whole nervous system, kind of like arthritis-like, and nothing was getting better. I was actually really sick at this point, like purging a lot and like physically. So something was wrong. And luckily I got there by this time.
Right.
And they do a whole detox method. So you're in the sauna, you're eating healthy. They kick all the gluten, dairy and sugar out of your diet. And you go through like a series of tests. So the first 30 days was just taking all these tests. The first one that I got back is that I had high mold in my system and heavy metal poisoning, which already affects your brain. And then I was just like, I know there's more to it. So we just kept testing. And by the time the 30 days was up, I was just barely, like we had started cleansing and everything. So unfortunately, when you start that process, if you're that chronically ill, you'll get sick before you get better. And so at that point, the first 30 days goes by and I'm like, oh my God, I like don't know what's going on, but I know there's something else. And I like praying again, like on my knees, like help me. Like I don't have any other means to like afford another month. And someone there actually anonymously went and paid for another month for me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
I know. So it still makes me want to cry. So
It's okay.
whoa. So at that point, so there's always something looking out, right? At that point, I was like, okay, one more month. And after.
You're going to make me cry.
I know.
Because I'm a ball of emotions too. Us cancers are sensitive.
Are you a Cancer?
I am.
I'm a Scorpio. It's the water sign. So a week after that person came up and paid for another month, I found out that I had chronic Lyme's disease.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the whole thing: heavy metal poisoning, mold poisoning, Lyme's disease, and gut inflammation. Like everything, all the foods that I was eating was triggering me. I could not feel my body. I was in this like absolute state of dissociation, and it really affected my brain to the point where I couldn't remember anything. It was like early stage dementia, which is in the thing for chronic Lyme and mold and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then that was basically it. Like I paid all that money to figure out this, and then it was like the real work was getting out of there. And I could walk from this place to there and feel like I was going to pass out. So I was very, very, very compromised. And I was used to doing all these higher level jobs. And I was like, I can't even do anything.
Can't do anything. You're debilitated.
Mm-hmm. But the thing is that they don't recognize, because it's not publicly talked about. This stuff isn't publicly talked about that much. And it's really big. I'm in all these different things on Facebook for chronic health and everything. And usually if people think it's like mental health and all of this, so they give you all the meds to suppress the symptoms and everything like that, rather than going to the root cause. So it's something that's really big with a lot of people. So I'm super compromised. I get a hostess job at this vegan restaurant there, and I can barely do that, but I'm just like, okay, I do it. And then I'm like trustful, and I started doing Codependence Anonymous because I was learning that like a lot, like I was very like on it, like taking care of everyone my whole life, taking care of myself my whole life, taking care of everyone around me my whole life, and working above and beyond, giving myself above and beyond in all my relationships. And there was no space for me. And so then I started getting really deep into in-depth trauma work and all of that, and which actually did lead me to studying deeper in indigenous wisdom and with indigenous plant medicine. Okay.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So earlier when we were talking, and I think we've had this conversation maybe a couple of times, but when I asked you, how long are you sober? You said, I'm a person in recovery, right? Which is fair. I mean, that's you. You're claiming that you're a person in recovery. That's fine.
Absolutely.
And then I asked you also before this, like, what don't you want to talk about? And then you kind of brought it back to me of what shouldn't we talk about? And like I say, like, this is a recovery podcast where we talk about all things recovery or lack thereof, depending on who the person is or whatever. Some people will interpret what they believe as being in recovery. What I see as my recovery is my recovery. And I know that like a lot of the people that I try to help with recovery, I do it my style from my outlook and what I see. So absolutely. But I'm not opposed to other schools of thought. And it sounds like you've done some extensive studying and you wanted to learn other ways. You're major, like a spiritual being. This is what I just know about you. From the little that we know about each other, I asked you, like, how do you know me? Like, how did we ever first meet? And I think that you probably heard me speak or something like that. But regardless of the fact, something, like when two souls somehow they come together. I mean, all souls are one soul.
One soul.
And I hear you talk a lot about God. And I love that because I myself am now a believer of God. Like before I was not sure. I was always uncertain, but I'm very certain in my world that God exists in all worlds. You know, like, I mean, God brought us all where we are. That's what I believe. You talk about what is it? Plant
medicine.
Plant medicine. Now, when you brought up plant medicine before, I said, "What do you smoke weed or what?" You said you don't smoke weed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't drink alcohol. You haven't done heroin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to plant medicine, I brought up ayahuasca. That's like where my head goes automatically. And you know, and you kind of feel like you could be a little bit of a hippie, right? Like maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I know you like playing music and stuff. You're a free spirit. That's beautiful. When you say plant medicine, what's the purpose? We're talking about ayahuasca, correct?
Yes, we're talking about ayahuasca.
In your world, what's the purpose of doing that? Because some people do ayahuasca to really get high.
Yeah.
And some people to do it to go into different spiritual realms.
Absolutely. So it was really, okay. So at this point, I was already so removed from any like Alcoholics Anonymous program because I had spent all that whole time just in torture. And so that was something that had been calling me, and I have Native American in my blood, roots in my blood. So it had been something that was calling me for a while.
Right.
And I was intrigued, and I'm intrigued in the aspects of what it can do for trauma. And one of my people that I follow is Dr. Gabor Mate. And
I know who Dr. Gabor Mate is. I actually respect and love him a lot.
So I followed him for years and years. And so it was always something that I actually really wanted to dive into. And also I was a good like student, a good like AA'er. So it was like this controversy. And so at this point I'm like, okay, well, I'm now able to like I need help. I need to go deeper. And I was watching, and it was another prayer. So I was in this center, alternative to meds, and they're very like body, mind, spirit. So they're very like, we're going to focus on the trauma because it's all a part of everything. I mean, illness starts because of this emotion and trauma, you know? So it's like, they focus on the trauma, they focus on the body, which is the cleansing, they focus on the spirit. And so in that center, I was like, all right, pray, another prayer up to Creator. I'm like, okay, how do I unwind this? How do I go deeper? Because at this point, when I'm meditating, oh my God, I had shooting pain from head to toe, like up into here. And like, I couldn't just like drop into a meditation anymore. Like everything was torture. So at this point, I'm like, I'm desperate. I'm willing to do anything. So I do a prayer. And I'm looking at spontaneous remissions on YouTube. So I click on one, and the spontaneous remission talks about this woman who is same situation as me, gets hit by chronic health. And then she's like, I didn't know what to do. So I go and do ayahuasca. And so I'm like, all right, if that's not God, then I don't know what is. So then I take it another step further, and I do a prayer. And I'm like, all right, if this is Creator, you have power and control. If this is up to you, if you want me to go this route, make it easy and effortless. And then the next day, someone random on my Facebook sent me the information that their shaman was coming from Peru to do a ceremony in a month and all this stuff. I had met this person once, and I would just random the very next morning. So I called her and I was like, here's what I'm going through. Like, and she was like, you should talk to him. So he was from Peru. He's a beautiful human. And I felt like his love, and immediately he was channeling stuff for me. He was like, oh, like you're going through this. He's like, your heart chakra, like all of this stuff. And he was like, and you have a lot of trauma. Like I can feel it. And he was like, so you don't have to do anything. This could be an option for healing. This could at least be an option for like finding some peace of mind and do your prayer. Like he gave me for a month, like routines to like meditate, do things to get me connected to my spirit again, because that's the whole thing, is like, it was about getting connected to the authentic spirit is what he was saying.
So let me ask you this. This is what I want to ask. We have a little bit of time left, and I wanted you to play the guitar too. Do you think, Cassidy, that with all things considered and all treatments that you've gone to for addiction, for alcoholism, for trauma, because you've had extensive trauma, do you think that in your life, with everything, all the therapy and everything, and all the medications that they were prescribing you or putting you on, do you believe that you've now overcome the trauma through this holistic form of medicine?
It's not, it wasn't just one thing.
Mhm.
See, this is the thing. And if you get bound and mangled so low, and it's not the only avenue, it was all things for me. So I started studying indigenous culture and way of life, which is like more than just even medicine. It's getting connected to the earth, the roots and everything. But through that, I found my healing modality, which was bee venom. And that completely reversed all my health problems. It's anti-cancerous, antifungal, antibacterial, but it's not just one thing.
Mhm.
It's like, I wouldn't have been able to do anything by just doing that. It was that plus a 12-step program, which I chose Codependency Anonymous, because that was the one that was like, and also beyond that, trauma work and having a trauma integration counselor, in-depth psychology therapist. It was all things, because where I was at and where I think some people get is at this point where they're completely mangled. And I was just so willing to do whatever it took to not, because I knew I wasn't bipolar. I think so many mental health things get thrown around everywhere. And I knew I was struggling with this stuff. And it just happened to be a part of the path. Now, I think everyone has their own unique path.
Sure.
So my thing is like, I'm very like holistic, well-rounded, like all things. You have to focus on the health. You have to focus on what brings you back to life, which is usually what you want to be doing in this world. You have to be in your passion. You have to be in your purpose. You have to have appropriate boundaries, and you do have to have a spiritual foundation for living. So
Sure.
12-step is like, I'm like such an advocate for that too. Like, it's all things.
Well, I love your respect for the 12-step world.
Absolutely. It saved my life.
For sure.
Oh my God. Biggest breakthroughs, biggest like life. I'll never leave the 12 steps. I'll never and I love AA. Like that's why I identify in recovery. And I know everyone does have their different beliefs. And so it's even interesting to talk about it publicly, but I'm just willing to open up and share a different aspect and perspective.
I love it. Absolutely. Well, with that said, let's see some musicianship. This is your guitar. You tuned it up. Why don't you take us out with a little song that you got?
All right.
We'd love to hear that from you.
My love, don't let me go. My love, my love, my love, my love, my love. My love, my love, my love, let me flow. My love, my love, my love. Look inside, and I think you'll find that your heart is made of gold. Look inside, and I think you'll find that your heart is made of gold. My love, my love. My love, my love, and I bow my head to Creator. Give me solace in this life, and correct me when I'm wrong. Help me find my own song. My love, oh, I bet if you look in inside, you will find that your heart is this infinite space. Infinite space, so connected to this grace. And I pray to Creator, bring me life, bring me love, free me of all my strife. Let's carry this mission of love. Oh, I'm on fire for the passion inside. Grab my hand, my dear brother. Grab my hand, my dear sister. My mother, my father. My brother, my sister. My brother, my father. Oh, we stand united inside this heart that's collective to it all. And I know myself by looking inside of your eyes, as we are one and the same. Although we may be separated by our philosophies, ideologies, we still breathe this fresh air. So my love, my love, my love, stand bright in all you are. Stand bright in all you are, infinite, infinite truth and beauty. My love, stand tall in all you are. You got the keys to your heart, as you are supported by the light. As you are supported by this light and love. My love, my love, my love, stand tall in all you are. You are supported in all this life. You are supported in all this life, as you are infinite, as you are true, as you are beauty. My love, my love, my love, my love. I'm just putting a prayer out there to the sick and suffering from addiction, mental health, poverty, and just the world and everything, the chaos and everything that's unwinding right now. So just sending this off as a beautiful prayer for hope, and knowing that inside of each one of us there's infinite truth and beauty.
Beautiful. Usually I would ask, do you have anything else you want to say? But you just said it. That's good enough. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming out today. You brought tears to my eyes. You are so amazing. Thank you for anybody that tuned in and saw this. And have a lovely rest of your day.